Welcome back to the LCS Lounge. Today we have a special treat, Revenge top lane tier list. Now, there is a bit of a story here. Revenge has had to watch other top laners do top lane tier lists, but now that you are in first place, you get to do your own top lane tier list.
Yes.
Take it away.
Okay, I have watched all the tier lists, you know. They've always come up on my timeline, you know. I've always been like on losing teams. Now's my time. Summit, I'm gonna put S tier for sure. I would say he is the best laner in LCS for top. As an overall player though, I think he has improved a lot between the splits, but he's still not like better than, for example, Fudge is slightly worse at laning than Summit, but I actually think that he's a better overall team player and just like player in general. I think he has a bigger champion pool and he plays better with his team. Someday. I actually think Someday's having a pretty decent split. I did kind of troll and get solo killed by him last week, so sucks. I do feel like he's strong on fewer champions, and I feel like he's a lot easier to lane against. I don't always actually think he takes many risks in lane, but he's very good at team fighting. I actually think he's like always consistently good at team fighting, which is very important. Solo. You know, it feels bad. I am friends with a lot of top laners in the league, so I don't like to do this, but if there is a D tier, he is very meta reliant, and his team fighting has not been very great this year. So I'll just base it solely on this split.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's
absolutely.
fair.
That's fine.
Good to me.
Rich, I feel like he does have a decent amount of weaknesses, and I do not feel like he's as strong of a laner as Fudge or Summit. But he's creative, and I don't think he's a bad team fighter. So I'm going to put him actually in A tier.
Ooh!
Yeah. Licorice. Honestly, huge improvement from last split, especially during the split. I'm actually going to put him at S tier.
Oh!
Yeah. I think that as an overall player, he's good at team play and team fighting. He's not as good at laning as Summit, but he's like a better team player and as good as a team player as Fudge. That's my take. All right, impact. You know, I will say he's a solid B tier right now, which hurts to do because I do think he is a really good player. It's hard for me to like rate him higher, especially with how much they've lost. Hanser. I don't know what happened. I mean, I played Renekton into him one game, and I 5-plated him, 1v1. And then ever since then, he has locked in Renekton every single game. So I don't know how he keeps getting Renekton, but I mean, I do think he is not very good though. Okay, Dokla.
Dokla next.
Is this the beef?
Well, I don't know if I would call it beef, but he does make tier lists a lot between friends, and he always rates me super low in the tier list, which is triggering. It's not that, like, you know, what am I gonna do about it, right? Like, it is what it is, right? But I do think he's been having a very rough split. If I'm going to take into account the whole split and how he's playing right now, I would put him above these two, but I would put him C tier.
Okay.
All right.
Unbiased. I will individually put myself right now at S. I do think I still have a lot to prove between these two and Summit, but I think I can lane versus Summit well. I can even beat him. I think I can contest Fudge and Licorice with team play and champion pool. I still have a lot to show, I think. So that's where I'll put myself right now.
All right. I thought you were going to do the long Kong on us and just put yourself in the inflated S tier, like above everybody else.
C tier?
But yeah, did this lock it in? Final tier list?
Yeah. Yeah. This is like my most measured tier list I can make. Unbiased.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much, Revenge. After 4 weeks of LCS, this is Revenge's top lane tier list. Thanks for joining us.
And there's Revenge right there on the stage, ready to take on this matchup against Golden Guardians. And the other face that you saw in that piece of content is now with us in the casting booth. Hello,
I teleported.
Jatt.
That was definitely live. No,
Very
I'm
fast.
happy to be here for this game. I think this is such an interesting matchup because EG is where I see Golden Guardians last split. It's this team that people didn't expect to be at the top, who is at the top, and everyone's kind of waiting for them to turn back into a pumpkin. But we have to see if it actually happens because Golden Guardians has been able to maintain that level for 3 months solid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is really interesting, right? Like, even on the dive, Speaker came on and we asked him, you know, who's his top 3, right? And he didn't actually have EG in the top 3. He had Team Liquid there. So a number of pros have even been publicly saying they don't think EG is as good as they appear, right? They don't think that this is actually a sustainable pace. And largely, most people are saying because they think that Jojo is having such a monster performance that he can't possibly keep winning games like this.
And he's just lifting everyone else
Yeah,
up.
that's basically the take.
I think Jojo is having an MVP level split. The thing that I find most fascinating about EG is how well the bot and the top lane perform in lane.
Yeah.
In their wins, they are just blowing people out in the early game and then seem to have a lot of confidence, which could be led by Jojo. So if that part of their game starts slumping, then I'll say, hey, they're not a top team. But for me, as long as they stay dominant in lane and motivated, they do actually feel like a top team to me.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree. I think they do to me as well. And I think, as we're getting further and further into Split, everyone should know, the level of performance that Jojo is having. And he's going to see more focus in pick and bans. He's going to be more focused in game as far as, teams developing strategies to try to shut him down. I think we actually saw EG fall prey to that a little bit last week, where there was a lot of bans towards mid lane, and they did this draft where it was like a 0 for Jojo, and they had this like late game scaling. It was like 100 Thieves-esque, 2 carries, 3 frontliners draft, and it didn't work out for them, right? Yeah. And Jojo, I think, still played really well in that game, but there was a lot of focus on him, and he wasn't on a champion with a huge amount of agency, so it didn't look like the same EG.
Actually, a really interesting anecdote about that. After their loss on Friday is when we filmed the Revenge tier list. So I know what went wrong in the draft. Yeah, they're basically saying they messed up a little bit in pick ban, and they didn't have any LeBlanc counters ready, and they had to go into the game without having a good matchup for that. So that's not one of those things that you expect to repeat itself, but it could be in the back of their minds.
But it is interesting for that loss on the side of Evil Geniuses to be against Energy when Palafox was talking in a recent TGI interview about the need to focus Jojo in draft, always taking away the Ahri and making sure to limit his pool. So it's obviously something that all the teams are coming into these matches with consideration on how strong of a pillar he has been for the squad.
Yeah, and I also misspoke. Looking at their last game that they were defeated in, I believe... I'm sorry, I may be trolling here, but I believe it was Azir that they didn't have the counters for. But either way, we're into this game. And
they played Azir. They played Azir, and it was against LeBlanc.
It was LeBlanc. Right. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong screen.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in Gori as well, because he is a bit of an inconsistent player to me, but when other mid laners have a bad game, it is often against Gori and River. So it's one of those things where I think he's sneakily underrated, but there is an abnormally high amount of games where you're thinking, man, that other mid, he's just having a rough one. So I think there's something special about Gori. I think he's a highly underrated player in early game.
Yeah, I think he is a really strong player for sure. And it is interesting. You look at the most banned champions against EG. It is Ahri, that's the #1 most banned against them. That is pretty atypical from what you see in other teams. When you look over at Golden Guardians, it's not even in the top 5, top 6 banned against them, right? So this is specifically a Jojo thing, but it's also tough because, when you think back to last year and you think back to spring, it's like, LeBlanc is also one of the champions that he's best known for. So you can't really give him that, even though it's been nerfed. You can't really give him the Ahri. You have to take away multiple picks to start answering him. And then that becomes really difficult, especially if you're on red side, because, you can't really give him Nico either. And, then you're leaving up a lot of other OPs if you're just going to only triple ban mid lane. So, even if you can kind of target someone and pick and bans, it still creates opportunity for your team.
Well, and speaking on what some of the strengths and weaknesses, what have you, have been on Evil Genius side, and you noted, Azael, that when Spica was on the dive, he was kind of in that boat of not quite believing in this roster, but he did have a lot of belief in Golden Guardians, having a lot of confidence in their ability to play as a team, the way that River and huhi work together with their early game proactivity. Even if every team knows how to read River and the way that he is going to play for early game, he still manages to find a way for it to be victorious for his squad. And even when they have a defeat, he looks good on the Poppy, for instance, in their recent loss against TSM.
Absolutely. I mean, I think River is just really creative in how he finds angles. And he's one of those players that you have to really worry about him. No matter what champion he's going to play on, he plays around these angles really well. So we could talk specifically about how he utilizes Hex Flash. And you have to be really careful about surprising ganks because he really loves the Hex Flash into brushes. He tracks vision well, so he circumvents wards by utilizing that rune and finds these surprising gank paths that people aren't really prepared for.
Another first pick LeBlanc, but it doesn't appear that as many mid lane bans were targeted for Jojo. So they will likely have what they consider an answer to it here, but LeBlanc's still an extremely powerful pick.
That sucks, man. It's working after this. Yeah, we'll see what they're going to go towards. It would be interesting to see if it is going to be a look towards Ahri. We've been seeing a lot of Xayah as an answer into LeBlanc. We just saw that last game from Insanity. People are pretty comfortable in this matchup. So Xayah as well as Rell 1-2 coming through. I would be pretty interested to see if this is ever going to get flexed toward jungle. Yeah. We keep talking about this. It's really popular in solo queue, but we haven't seen Rell jungle in the LCS just yet. Armao, though, was one of the early adapters of some of these kind of more new meta picks. He actually did play some Ivern, so potentially he's been practicing this and could bring it out. And at least it's a threat when you pick it early.
It could actually be a double flex if they wanted to go Xayah into the LeBlanc. That was one of the bans that EG had in their game when they said they had no LeBlanc counters left. So I think there's a decently high chance they're actually just throwing the Xayah mid.
Yeah, I think it is. You know, that's what I was saying. Like last game, we saw the exact same matchup, right? Insanity bring that out. So I think it's pretty powerful in that matchup, and you can trade fairly well with it. Going to be Renekton locked in here for revenge. I like Renekton on 3, you know, and just top lane on 3 when you're on red side, because they throw a couple of protection bans here. And yes, you are going to be picking blind, but you're going to have a little bit of safety of these couple of bans that are likely going to come out. I think we're going to see, you know, Rumble's already banned out, so Jax comes out. They don't necessarily have to throw another ban up there, but Licorice has been having a really good season. Yeah,
in my mind, they may as well keep throwing top lane bans that way, because they can still flex the Xayah and the Rell. I actually think of the junglers that you mentioned that would play Rell, Armao is right up on that list. He plays so much League of Legends, and we're also in a tank jungle meta. So I think they'll wait until we'll see, but I think they'll wait until 5-pick to decide whether their jungler is a Rell or something else.
Still holding some of the cards of concealment here.
Yeah, and it is interesting, the Ahri ban coming through. So clearly Golden Guardians aren't sure that Xayah is going mid. It is played bot still as well, obviously. But in the LCS, it has been played a lot more mid lately. So still giving respect to that Ahri ban, despite the fact that, you know, it did go through that first phase. Another ban protecting towards top. Kennen, another good pick there for Licorice. It's something that he really does enjoy playing. Can be a difficult matchup. So I'm going to be interested to see if it's just going to be like with all these top lane bans, it might just be K'Sante, right? We might be just getting the two most popular top laners, despite having, you know, so much attention and picks and ban thrown up towards it. And Jace as well as a ban, which to me feels, potentially, you know, could be flexed around, but it's basically another Jojo ban, right? So they're double banning mid lane. So Golden Guardians is really not sold that it is actually going mid.
Well,
okay,
the mystery's been solved. They're going Draven. We were fairly sold, but definitely Golden Guardians understanding that it was a flex and respecting it as such.
Yeah, you cannot discount that against evil geniuses who could kind of lean into the flexibility that has been the name of the game, especially on 13-13 with picks like Xayah coming into the fold, though they did, of course, go for some of what we saw on like the CSM game just prior with that Renekton locked up top. But Golden Guardians coming in with, as you predicted it, the K'Sante locked. And we'll see what River decides to bring in. The Prime Hover, of course.
I mean, Jarvan makes a lot of sense. You know, Vi also a really good option. I just think you want Dive when you're playing against Draven. This is a champion that can really struggle when people are piling in on top of you. You don't have a lot of mobility. You just have that speed up from your Blood Rush, I believe it's called. So it can be pretty difficult, you know, if you are getting piled in on top of. It's a pretty heavy dive comp, but potentially, you know, from EG, but potentially, you know, could be used kind of as counter engage. Feels like the team fights are going to be very bloody because both teams, I think, want to do pretty similar things. They're going to kind of have their main target, but I feel like, you know, given
there it is,
Milio coming out, so it is going to be Rell jungle. Nice.
Yeah, good job. You called it.
I mean, it's really interesting, right? Like, given the two compositions, I feel like I favor what Golden Guardians have drafted because both teams want to do similar things, but there's like better dive targets for Golden Guardians, right? The Draven, the Xayah, I think are a lot more vulnerable than the LeBlanc, than the Xayah. They have a lot better anti-dive, so I do think it's going to be difficult for EG to actually find their targets.
I agree. I think it's one of those games where EG kind of has to overperform in lane. They kind of got to pick all their matchups based on their 1-2 being Rell Xayah, where they can flex that as a bottom lane, and they ended up flexing it to jungle mid. So in theory, the Renekton is the only thing that they blind picked. Everything else they got counter. So you would hope that they're happy and comfortable in those matchups and they can display some of their individual laning skill.
All right, I'm excited for it. We've been kind of waiting for that moment where the Rell does get flexed into that jungle position within the LCS, as it has been erupting in other leagues.
I hate to say it, I don't think this is the best slot for it. Maybe there's some Rell Vi interaction I'm not knowledgeable about, but I feel like Rell would best be served against other tank junglers as we're moving towards this meta where we're seeing tons of Maokai, Sejuani, Nautilus, the slower farming junglers. Vi can get right up in your face, can farm fast, and can maybe outpace you. So I'm really curious how EG is going to try and navigate this.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think, you know, generally when you are playing Rell jungle, you know, you're looking more towards your utility in the 5v5s, you know, powerful engage. You're going to be able to get the levels. You're going to be able to get active on the map. But there's just, again, there's just not great dive targets. You know, maybe you can kind of just lock down the LeBlanc and burst 100-0, but Stixxay is going to be really tough to dive on this Xayah. So a lot of pressure, I think, on the early game. Unforgiven playing barrier. So it's a barrier heal from the bot lane of EG. They know he's going to be a massive dive target. It's going to be mostly about actually trying to take him down. Yes, there is the Cozy Campfire. You know, you're going to have that with double AD carries, which is really, really nice because you're giving range potentially to both those marksmen in a fight. And you do have the shields from the Warm Hugs. You have the Breath of Life. So there's a lot of defensive tools there to try to keep him up. But I still think even with all that, you have to be playing from ahead.
Evil Geniuses making sure to take away this early ward that Golden Guardians had put defensively.
Looks like Golden Guardians want to contest this.
Yeah, they're circling around it. Stixxay and huhi making sure to hover from the bot side.
Licorice is coming as well. So Licorice is actually coming all the way down from top lane. So Golden Guardians are definitely going to fight this. We could have just a straight up all-out brawl here at level 1. We'll see if either team does kind of blink. It's a bit of a game of chicken right now.
They're here, I think, and they're starting it, so let's go.
Okay.
Putting the fish in the barrel right now. Revenge is holding off Licorice to make sure it's not a complete circle. The red buff starting to get burned. River gaining the level, channeling to get towards the backline. Root onto Armao, who flashes away. First blood drawn by Gori. Golden Guardians stand up against the invade.
Man, it's just really all down to the smite. Both teams are kind of just down to flip the game. Level 1, I guess. It's 5v5 action at level 1, all for the red buff here. Armao gets outsmited by River, which means he put in so much work in that subsequent fight. They get first blood onto Gori. Armao's down a flash. He is going to be starting so far behind. He has to cross map to start on his Raptors, so he's already 2 camps down. And Jojo got chunked out in that as well. You know, they used the heal from Eyla. They used the flash from Revenge. EG are in a terrible spot.
It's just so wild that they did this, but also if they win the smite, Armao gets level 2, then he has the extra spells for the engage, as River had here, because he gets the smite, he hits level 2, he levels up Q, and then he just goes with huhi, so they have the damage to just straight up one-shot and get the first blood. So they're really flipping the game on the jump ball. That's what it feels like there, and they lost it.
I mean, that is crazy. Also, you can see Armao was trying to Q smite it. At about 700 health, he went for Q smite, and River just pressed smite same time. They both smited. There was no health shown between 700 and something and dead. It does 600 damage, so they're trying to go for that timing. That is just purely a flip, right? Like at that point, it's not as though, you know, either of them really mistimed it.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult situation.
I would say that's actually extra well done by River. Like, that's always my argument if you're talking about like Nunu and his like, who does 2,000 damage? It's like, well, not really. The other jungler can read your consume animation and just press at the same time, which is what an experienced jungler like River would do. So even though Armao got to combo it with his skill for like a quote perfect hit, that's not how it works if the other jungler is reading your animation.
Oh, so now off of that early success for Golden Guardians and River winning out, quite the lead they were able to set up for Gori in mid lane, and lots of pressure against Jojo, who was consistently rattled and poked down after that.
So anyway, when we talk about EG getting counterpick in all their lanes and wanting to play from ahead, they're still going to try and do that. They just don't necessarily have what we would consider the same jungle pressure. I would say Armao did a pretty good 5-camp clear, still has the ability to hover Jojo in mid lane, and they're generally just down that 700 gold.
So they're in
an okay spot.
Channeling it up.
No.
Yeah, I think he was trying to find a little bit of a weird angle where he was trying to go max distance but still get over the wall.
Yeah.
Like, I think he wanted to get really close and look for Q and then W, because if you hit the stun, then you guarantee the crash down. But now they're going to move down towards bot. They have 4 men coming here. It is going to be River trailing the play. They're going to try to threaten a dive.
Didn't work mid, so saying, hey, can we make something happen, bot? You can see River starting to follow up. Armao and Jojo slightly backing off of this, and the ward does give them intel on River's positioning. So Armao is the first to go in to stun up River and just make sure that huhi and Stixxay cannot follow up on this.
This is a rough start for EG. They just invested so much time. They gave up mid prior for that. Armao has heavily delayed his recall. That feels like one of those things where they've actually played the Draven, Milio, Rell in scrims, and they've stacked the wave and they've dove perfectly. The play just wasn't there. They're a little bit behind the pace from the level 1, and they've wasted even yet more time.
Yeah, and they're trying to problem solve, obviously, from a terrible level 1, trying to find plays. You know, Armao spending a lot of time there trying to look for action, but can't quite find it, as River was on that side of the map. If River hadn't been trailing, I think you can make that play happen, but because he is, they don't want to risk it. If you go for that dive, he's too close. He has flash. He'll get there. It'll likely be a disaster. So I do think it's the right call to pull it off. But as you say, time invested there. And Jojo, who's normally massively ahead in lane, like he's been dominating in the 1v1s. His opponent got first blood. He got chunked out. Now he moves from the wave. And Jojo in the lane is kind of screwed. Like he's down 20 CS at 5 minutes.
And now River starting up on that dragon. Gori falling into some trouble to get that passive popped, but huhi's hovering. We've seen huhi always be ready to unlock himself from lane to create this pressure across mid.
Jojo's level 4 and Gori's level 6.
Isn't it weird how other mid laners keep having bad games against Gori? I think we talked about this in Champ Select. It's so strange.
You don't say.
This one is it's a little biased because of the level 1 gave him the first one. Has a big difference.
And he was chunked out as well. So I think this game was pretty doomed from level 1 for the laning phase, but we'll see what Jojo can do to try to bring it back. Obviously, it's going to be very difficult, you know, and that's why I think Armao was playing around mid. They want to be able to look for these kills, but especially now that Gori's 6, it's so hard to be able to actually kill this guy. When you're behind, you can't 100-0 him. He has double distortion. Like, he would have to use both his Ws, and then Armao would have to be there at the immediate time, and they'd have to look for 100-0 play, which I think is just never going to happen.
I will also say, though, if Gori has a huge game and EG lose their second game in a row to first pick LeBlanc, they are not letting LeBlanc through the next time they're on red side. I guarantee you.
What is it? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
They won't let the third time come around. But still early enough. We're at 7 minutes into the game. Dragon was not claimed because of both of the supports kind of hovering around that mid side. But it's difficult for the position that Jojo is in. We've seen what Kaisa can do when ahead. We've seen the difficulty when behind. We've seen the plays that can happen on top side when River is given this attention to Licorice. Revenge over in Dominus does manage to slice through Licorice, and River has to flash over towards the River himself.
Oh my
God. Not going the way of GG.
No, I mean, Licorice missed his Q3 and then used his all out so early when Revenge still had all his spells. You're supposed to tank a little bit of damage. He uses his spells, then you go all out, you sustain through it. But when you just put yourself low like that, it can go so bad. Gori does spot Armao with the sweeper, but the 1v2 kill for Revenge gets him a lot of pressure on top side. Now they're looking to dive bot.
Exactly, the pressure translates because it's like the gank happens, so maybe they can win on two sides.
Now Armao trying to get the lock onto Stixxay. Airborne he goes, but the damage coming out. Huhi sets it up for Armao to be drawn down. Stixxay with no summoners available. River trying to focus onto Unforgiven. Gori coming over the wall. There's no Jojo to be seen, and Unforgiven sees two members of EG. Nice on his tail. One more pop will do it. Gori grabs the kill.
Yeah, they really wanted to force that dive, but it's kind of a swing and a miss there from Armao. He goes for the Q to set it up, but Stixxay flashes it. The crash down comes down anyway, so you can tell he's kind of just mashing the button. Xayah was 6 though, and that's going to make it so hard to play. Plus, Unforgiven, he just lost 150 stacks off that dive because he did not get a cash out, so this one really hurts. Just the ulti spent, I think, way too early there, not respecting the damage, was Licorice, and Licorice tries to go in, tries to make the play happen. Obviously, he wanted to hit with the Q3 and then ult him back towards the tower. That didn't happen, but then they try to force dive on the other side.
Yeah, as you can see here, Stixxay is level 5 at the very beginning of this dive, but then as they go in, they get the kill, which gives him level 6, which just makes things bad to worse. It looked like it could have been a momentum swinging sequence, which is why EG went for the big swing, but they bite off too much. 2 kills going to Rakan is a little fortunate for EG, but then at the end, the lost stacks from the Draven, as well as the extra kill for Gori's LeBlanc, make this, again, Golden Guardian's favor.
Exactly. I mean, it's so much potential gold there that is lost. You know, it's 2.5 gold per stack on the cash out, so we just lost 150 stacks. That's like an extra kill worth of gold right there, you know, more than. So it's pretty punishing, but they are going to be at least able to get the Herald back on top side, and they have this pressure from Revenge. We'll see what they can make with it. Oh, got him.
With Licorice once more. Under the tower he goes, and Licorice gets revenge from the previous play gone wrong.
Yeah, gets revenge on revenge, as that was kind of the only winning lane for them right now, and he just gets solo killed with that lead.
Huhi charmed directly under the turret. Jojo rooted, and Gori 3 kills. Bouncy feeling good about it. Over 2,000 gold lead for Golden Guardians.
Yeah, Gori is having a game. The first blood into the free kill bottom lane into that. So he gets the static shiv that allows him to shove in the lane. Beautiful coordination and skill shots from Gori and huhi. He is off to the races.
I think TriCast are seeming a little cursed for EG. We did a TriCast when they were going up against C9, and they got absolutely pounded in that game. We're like, oh, another big match up at the top. Let's TriCast it. And EG are getting smacked down right now.
Licorice, though. Eyla and Armao are lurking. Can get out of that one. I do kind of want to look into if the other 2 losses from Evil Geniuses were TriCast or not to see what the percentage is.
Yeah. I think there's also a level here as Gori is just eating plates on the bottom side. He's going to be a big problem in this game. But I do think there's an element of the start of this split. EG comes in with low expectations, wins a bunch of games. It's very exciting. So everyone talks about it. All these players have something to prove. They're the underdogs in almost every game. Once the first round robin is complete and they're tied for first, those expectations reset.
Yeah.
And now other teams are actually a little pissed off that everyone's talking about EG so much, because Golden Guardians just finished second in the LCS Spring Split. They had a pretty good showing at MSI, and they're 1 game behind them. So I think there actually is an extra element when these other top teams play against EG of really wanting to, quote, put them in their place.
Absolutely. There's more effort put towards prepping for the teams as well. You know, when it is a team that's expected to be at the bottom, you're not going to spend as much time thinking about them when they're at the top. You will bet your ass that's circled on the calendar, and you're going to be really trying to get ready for this squad. They will crash the Herald top side, so they're getting a little bit of gold back there. But Jojo's just so far out of the game, you know, with what happened level 1 and the pressure that he's been under, the failed dive on bot side. He's down 3,000 gold in his individual matchup. He's nearly doubled by where Gori is. Gori has a ridiculous amount of gold to actually go back and spend. He's 3,100 gold in pocket, so he's going to go back, buy an entire next item, and it's just going to be pretty unplayable, I think, for both Unforgiven and Jojo from this far behind, and with so many tools that Golden Guardians have to dive.
Absolutely, and the level 1 was important, but it's not this level of important. Gori and River have been playing really, really well. Luden's completed at 12 minutes, 20 seconds with static shiv. That's absurd.
Which is why they feel so comfortable just taking ownership of the map in the way they are now, making sure that Evil Geniuses narrow the places with which they can move freely. And multiple members of Golden Guardians have talked in interviews about how River and Gori in a lot of ways do lead the charge. Obviously, the early game plays coming from that jungle position, coming from that pairing in that mid-jungle duo. And when they're feeling on it, you can see the rest of the team follow.
Absolutely. Gori's just going to play through sides because there's not really anyone that can answer him at all. He's a full item up on everyone.
Get, man? He got solo turret gold bottom. He's already at, it feels like he has more than 7,000 gold, but that's because Jojo only has 4,000.
I mean, 7,000 gold is ridiculous for 13 minutes, right? Like, this is
really
an absurd amount. Yeah.
For some reason, I was expecting to see 10K, but like we're not that late in the game.
Which is why when River gets the lockdown onto Revenge on the top side and everyone's here to follow, Gori can just easily rack in his 4th kill of the game. And that gold is going to continue to skyrocket.
Yeah, it's just not going to stop. And he even has now 6 stacks on the Dark Seal. This is one of those games where maybe you just actually go for mid guys.
Yeah.
Because you are so far ahead, you can kind of style on your opponents a little bit. I think EG are probably just going to keep fighting because that's kind of their style. When they fall behind, they usually lose quick because they're just going to fight every single opportunity because they know only way you come back in this game is somehow just outplaying a bunch of fights in a row. So they won't sit back passively. I think they're going to show up, you know, at some moment, whether it's a Baron or whether it's Dragon, and they're just going to send it all, look for a 5v5. If that goes bad, the game is well and truly over.
Yeah, I want Gori to initiate the Soul War. Like, the best time to initiate this war is when you're 4-0 and your team is massively far ahead, because it's just going to make things go from bad to worse. He's going to get another solo turret here.
14 minutes into the game, so just missing out on some additional plates, but was able to get all of them knocked down on the bot side, so the outers have been taken out, and 5,000 gold for Golden Guardians.
I mean, we had this TL Immortals game earlier, this split, which set an LCS record for like a team gold lead at 15 minutes. Once 15 minutes hits, especially if Gori can get this one, it might be a record.
Huhi's saying, I want you to get as rich as possible, Gori, who does manage to get the root and out of it cleanly.
I mean, it is crazy. It's not even just that he's this far ahead of his opponent. He's this far ahead of his own team, too. He just has such a ridiculous amount of gold for this early in the game. He's been getting absolutely everything. He's going to get the tier 2 tower, or at least close to it as well, as Ayla's trying to defend mid, but huhi is here, so EG are in shambles. His Golden Guardians are just taking everything on the map. He got the tier 2 as well, so he's at 9,500 gold. He's more than double Jojo.
Armao making an attempt with a Magnet Storm, but gets charmed. River continuing to slap him, but is knocked away into the backline. Revenge wants to make the play, but rooted, stunned up, and more. Jojo coming on in. Can he grab huhi? Can he grab more? It's a double kill for Stixxay. Golden Guardians take out 3, and it's just the bot lane of EG retreating towards the turret.
I'm on 10,000 gold watch currently. He's at 9,800. With this turret going down, he's good.
10,000.
10,000 at 1540. I don't think I've ever seen that. Maybe there's an example. I don't know. This is a really, really hard stat to pull because I don't think we can check. But that is absolutely ridiculous. We came in talking about this Golden Guardians versus EG, Jojo MVP candidacy type of situation. And now we have... He's more than double Jojo's gold. He has 10,000 to 4,700.
Double everyone's gold, basically.
Show me this ever happening in a professional game. This is something I don't know if I've seen before.
It's crazy. I mean, this would be a crazy amount of gold to have for a funnel meta, right? Like, this is even more than we used to see in those kind of games. So this is ridiculous. I'm sure it happened at some point in some game, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's an LCS record.
Well, listen, 3,512 at 14 is a record. So 5,300 at 1530, I'm going to say that's also a record.
Every time we look at Gori, too, it just feels like huhi's here saying, I can grant hindrance in. Look, they're knocked up for you. You got the damage. Let's get another one in your pocket. And it's not that far off between what the gold lead for GG is and the total gold of Gori.
Yeah.
He himself being the advantage against EG right now, who are attempting to hold him back. But Gori, look, he just lands the chains. Armao is able to get out of it in this armored form, and Jojo trying to have this push over on top side and grab some of these bounties.
River wins this, I think.
He's going for it.
Jojo wants ult over the wall.
He missed the cue.
Breaker, couldn't quite connect there. But slam it down, takes down Jojo. The win conditions of Evil Geniuses looking very, very slim as River in the 1v1 with the enemy mid laner can take him off the map.
Yeah, I think the win conditions for EG is remaking this game at this point. I think that's their best shot.
This is a go next if you're in scrims, for sure.
This was a go next like 10 minutes ago if you're in scrims. Yeah. This game is a slaughter.
Soul War initiated 17 minutes in. Gori GOAT, I agree. For now. I think maybe this is a bad time to revisit the conversation about other teams' views of EG. Do you think this game has a large implication on how other teams see EG at the top?
I don't think so. I think almost every pro player you talk to, if you ask them about this game, is going to say it was a level 1 remake.
It was really, really, really big.
It was a really bad level 1. I do think Golden Guardians deserve more credit than just saying it's all level 1. But I think most people will just say, like, this game was toast at level 1, and then EG just kind of do what EG does, and that's just fight and hope something goes well.
I agree, but I do think there's an element now of how bad does it go for EG when it goes a little bit bad.
Yeah.
Because they had the C9 game where it was, again, over really early. This game also felt over really early. Those are really tough losses
actually
when they stack up.
They're stepping forward. They want charges on the Nexus towers.
Inhibitor taken down. The charges have been good so far. Huhi and Licorice are drawing the attention of multiple from Evil Geniuses, though. The back is coming in from Ayla. The charges are good. Golden Guardian saying, go, Shelly, go!
Protect Shelly!
No, Shelly's down! But EG is going down as well with their Nexus. GG with the win.
Okay, what a stomp. Golden Guardians absolutely blast EG. This one was not close by any stretch of the word. An absolute clobbering at the top of the table here. Golden Guardians with, the level 1 going heavily their way, but then able to just really snowball this to ridiculous degrees. Gori got so much gold in the side lanes.
Yeah.
He doubled basically every single person's gold on EG. Like, this is just absurd.
At the end of the game, Gori did have more than double Jojopyun's gold. Again, something I don't think has happened before. We'll have to verify, but doubling someone's gold in a professional game is not very frequent.
I mean, he was a couple hundred gold away from having more gold than Jojo and Unforgiven combined.
I mean, he does have more gold than Armao and Jojopyun.
He does. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, and
who's a better mid jungle, Armao, Jojo, or Gori and himself? River set it up. He got the smite at level 1. He started it. They ganked mid, but what an incredible performance by GG.
Absolutely. There was kind of a brief moment for EG where like, oh, maybe they can do something, where Revenge got the 1v2 kill, and then they looked for the dive bot, but the dive bot went so bad. And this is just, I mean, honestly, I would have loved to see them full commit and get Shelly to dance. Yeah. Because that is the ultimate embarrassment for a team. Seeing Shelly dance on you. Whereas if you haven't seen that, if you're newer, it is when Shelly's still alive. When you actually kill the Nexus, it just starts dancing, and it is the funniest
Watch
thing.
This though. Jojo knows. He landed the W.
Sniped it. It's a moral victory there.
All the players putting so much work into their emote wheels and how they can taunt the opponent. That is the one thing that takes a lot of things specifically in game to happen to try to achieve the dancing Shelly, but denied in this regard.
Very rare. I've seen it maybe a couple times ever in pro play.
Yeah, so I just received word. His goal difference at 14 was a record. 15 was second place all time, so there's some game out there that I'm sure LCS will tweet about it, but a very close to historic performance there by Gori and Golden Guardians.
And it does feel like Golden Guardians, when they're trying to make sure they're in the conversation, the same way people are hype about EG, they're saying, don't forget about us. Don't forget us, we're here. And that is a way to make a statement for sure. But for anyone looking towards the end of the season, tickets are officially on sale for the LCS Championship in Newark, New Jersey on August 19th and 20th. So head on over to Ticketmaster.com right now to claim your spot. We're gonna go ahead and join Raz and huhi on stage for our Verizon post-game interview.
All right, first things first, congratulations on the win, huhi. That was an interesting level 1.
Yeah, it was.
Tell me a little bit about it, because it felt like those are the type of level 1s I feel like in scrims. Not so much on stage. Tell me about like the reasoning contesting it, because you even brought in Licorice for the protection there, for the red buff.
Yeah, I mean, I think River already knew, like, Azael, his weakness is level 1, and enemy can invade, and we were aware of that, so we already started planning in the loading screen. Like you mentioned, people will do it in scrims, and then if it goes wrong, either way, someone will ask for a remake.
Yeah,
it's a stage game, so they flipped it, and then it was on our side.
Was it because of the fact you guys challenging? Was it because of fear for the pathing for Vi, or for you guys? Because they drafted, felt like heavily for lane with Draven, and they could possibly go for a dive. Was that something that came to your mind when you guys were talking about it?
For sure, like dive was one of our biggest like awareness in the early game, because they had Draven Milio versus the Rakan, and you can see it in the game. Kaisa was keep moving no matter like what was happening in her lane. So we were aware that they were really desperate after the level 1, and we were just focusing on countering that.
Speaking about desperation and dives, they ended up going for it. And you became a very rich Rakan after the fact. What was the comms when they were looking for the dive initially? And then tell me, what was the game plan like basically after? Just a reaction off of it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there is not much like, like we just communicated the proper way. Like whenever they're stacking a wave, or whenever like their mid is moving, we're just communicating that, letting my mid laner and my jungler know. And yeah, we're just kind of playing like outplaying them as well. So yeah, I just got really rich, and we had complete control of the game. And from there, it was like the fight between ourselves that we don't throw the game. Because when people get too far ahead, they'll throw the game,
So then it leads into my last question. You guys, how many wins do you guys have right now?
I don't know.
9?
9? Okay.
And you guys are nearing 10 wins. You guys have never gotten 10 wins before.
Yeah.
How much have you guys talked about it? Because I felt like last time I've heard from Monero or Sam, they've like said that you guys talk about it. But it's a touchy conversation.
Yeah, so Golden Guardians never passed the 9-9.
Yeah.
And as a jokingly, we were saying, oh, like we're going there. You know, we're getting there. We're almost at 9 wins, guys. We have to start losing, stuff like that. Obviously, it's a joke, but like it's definitely something that we're aware of, and we obviously want to break that, but also at the same time trying to like joke about it.
Tilt the coach as well.
Yeah, they get really tilted whenever we say now we have to lose every game in the LCS.
Okay, that's good. Any message for the fans out there?
We appreciate all the supports I think we've been getting. Thank you guys. Yeah, and especially in a big stage, I can't wait to play in front of you guys again. Thank you.
There it is. All right, thanks a lot again, Huhi, for that one. And we're going to go to the break right after this one. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Armao making an attempt with a Magnet Storm, but gets charmed. River continuing
Gori's
to
here,
slap, but is knocked away into the backline. Revenge wants to make the play, but rooted, stunned up, and more. Jojo coming on in. Can he grab huhi? Can he grab more? It's a double kill for Stixxay. Golden Guardian fans, go! Shelly, go!
Protect Shelly!
No, Shelly's down! But EG is going down as well with their Nexus. GG with the win.